Yo, I'm Luke, and today we are going to review something really special. We're going to review one of Japan's famous franchises that shook the entire world! And could quite possibly do that literally now that I think about it. Well, anyway, of course, I am talking about Godzilla.
Called Gojira in Japan and started in 1954, it became extremely successful, becoming an iconic figure for many years to this day, with an enormous amount of films and other forms of media, and giving the rise to the famous kaiju or giant monster genre.
And considering it was successful in Japan, it shouldn't be too much of a surprise for Hollywood wanting to take advantage of it.
It makes sense because America has also been getting into the giant monster craze in the 1950s, with movies like them, and more prominently, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which is said to be an inspiration to making Godzilla. So, Jewel Enterprises, along with Edmund Goldman, who bought the international rights, were responsible of handling the localization of the film.
Although they did take a bit of a different approach.
Besides the usual dubbing, the company, along with director Terry Morse, decided to add their own twist to the movie by adding their own scenes and editing the original film in order to give a new perspective as shown through the eyes of an American. And on April 27th, 1956, it aired and took the theaters by storm. But does this adaptation hold up, and was it worth all the hype compared to the original?
Well, we're about to find out, but before I start, this is very different from the original that it feels like a new movie. So if you prefer to watch these in order, or just prefer the original in general, definitely watch Gojira first. And with all that out of the way, let's get started by reviewing Godzilla, King of Monsters.
So we start this movie off by being introduced to the title card. Okay, off to a good start. And then we are shown the destruction of Tokyo. Huh?
You know, they did say something that other than adding additional scenes, they also had to cut some of the original scenes, and thus that made the movie shorter. So much for a good start.
Hope someone could explain what happened.
This is Tokyo.
Thank you.
Once a city of 6 million people. What has happened here was caused by a force which, up until a few days ago, was entirely beyond the scope of man's imagination.
So we meet one of the survivors of this tragedy, and the one narrating the movie, Steve Martin.
You'll be a dentist.
No, not that Steve Martin. This Steve Martin is an American news reporter and is played by Raymond Burr, whose most notable role is Perry Mason in the 1955 TV series, well, Perry Mason. So of course, no relation to the actor Steve Martin.
Although this could be an interesting experiment if you want to get people's first reactions when you say, "Hey! Did you know Steve Martin was in a Godzilla movie?"
Anyway, Steve Martin is trying to get out of the wreckage and... Nah, just kidding. He is later rescued and taken to the hospital, where he sees the other wounded survivors of Godzilla's rampage. And one of our main characters, Emiko Yamada, played by Momoko Koji, which seems to be one of his friends. During his time of recovery, he flashes back to when this nightmare all started, as we are seeing Steve on a plane heading to Tokyo, and at the same time, a ship is sailing in the ocean. And if you know your Godzilla films, this is not going to end well.
I don't know why they're keeping this suspenseful. I mean, it's probably what we saw before. Although, it wouldn't surprise me after all these years of Godzilla causing mayhem to the Japanese people, just having the name spelled out in front of them is enough to traumatize them.
After the incident, the Japanese people are being cautious of the event, including questioning all the passengers on Steve Martin's flight if they've seen anything from the air. So much so that they asked Steve for questioning in private, where we meet Tomo Yugara, played by... Well, sadly I couldn't find the actor who played him anywhere. And that's sad considering he is another important role that they add to the movie. You'd think they would give him credit for it. Man, hopefully I even got his character name right. Well, anyway, Yugara asks Steve Martin questions about his flight to Japan. But of course, Steve has some questions for Yugara.
We don't know what it is we're dealing with. At 3:30 this morning, a ship from Tokyo was literally wiped from the surface of the ocean in a matter of seconds.
Could have been a mine or a collision.
Well, why would the radio man not report a mine or a collision?
That's a good point. Well, whatever's being done, I'd like to find out about.
All right, come with me.
So they head to the radio room, noting that they just sent a rescue ship to the area where the ship sank.
Japanese ship disasters puzzle world. 8 ships obliterated by mysterious blinding flash of fire. No survivors found.
So Japan is in a panic and want answers quickly, especially the families of the missing sailors.
And speaking of the devil, they found them. Well, they should provide some answers for us.
The few survivors who have been found died in a matter of minutes from shock and strange burns.
Oh, that was anticlimactic. Didn't even give a hint or anything like that. Just nothing.
Now Japan starts recruiting scientists to help with the investigations, one being another of our main characters, Dr. Yamane, played by Takashi Shimura, and is the father of Emiko.
Wait, what'd he say? Oh, this movie does not work if you understand Japanese.
This is a major problem I have with the movie. The editing can be admired for technology back then, but now it feels inconsistent, especially with deciding not to dub certain lines. And like I said, if you understand Japanese, lines like these can take you out of the movie and make you question what were they thinking. And look, I didn't expect them to dub everything, like groups of people talking at the same time, their names, or even small replies, but I was hoping they would make it consistent so the audience can stay in the immersion of the movie.
You know, as someone who loves voiceover or voice acting in both countries, I can understand that the dubbing process can be a bit of a challenge. This is just pushing it.
Alright, taking that really big problem out of the way. They concur that a clue to this investigation is on Odo Island, where the natives believe that a legend of old is responsible for this disaster. Oh, and it may be also due to the fact that one of the survivors washed ashore. So Steve and Yugara go to the island to do some investigating. So after more info, they know more about the legend, including its name, Godzilla. Then they go rest for the night. But then a giant typhoon hits the island that doesn't seem to affect Steve and Yugara yet. Ah, there we go. But it appears there is more to this typhoon than we think.
You'd think they would have a better chance of surviving by escaping that collapsing house, but I don't blame them. I don't like getting wet either.
The next day, they bring some islanders back to Tokyo for questioning and decide that Dr. Yamane should head to the island to study what happened, along with Emiko, a Marine officer, Hideo Ogata, played by Akira Takanada, Steve, and Yugara. So they start the cast off in a celebratory manner.
But there was still a feeling of anxiety among us all. For every ship that had taken this course had vanished from the face of the earth.
Yeah, I could end up like the Titanic kaiju version. Although I would like to see that.
Also, I should mention Raymond Burr's other role is to narrate some scenes by explaining what is happening and some of the relations with the characters like a documentary.
But perhaps the 2 exceptions were Emiko and a young Marine officer named Ogata. At the moment, they seemed more interested in each other. When I'd last seen Emiko, she had just become engaged to Dr. Serizawa. It was the usual triangle. Only this time, it was to play an important part in the lives of millions of people.
Honestly, it's not too bad of an idea, but this idea was probably used in order to make the film shorter, which honestly hurts the movie, as it looks like it's speeding up and only telling, instead of showing, character moments. Now on the island, they made many discoveries such as footprints, small prehistoric creatures, and traces of radioactivity. Also, when I look at these people, it makes it look like they're on a tour group instead of an expedition.
There's nothing quite like the smell of a tropical island atmosphere. Sir, this area is radioactive.
Well, tour or not, they are about to witness the main reveal that they and the audience have been waiting for.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes!
Oh, no. Are you kidding me? This is how they introduce Godzilla? I mean, some shots looked okay, but this one? It looks like a rejected Muppet and has a lazy eye worse than Tex from Galaxy Boy Troop. So Godzilla escapes into the ocean, and the team report on what they discovered.
It can safely be assumed that 2 million years ago, this Brontosaurus and other ancient reptiles roamed the Earth. It was known as the Jurassic Age.
Wow, that is inaccurate on so many levels. You're starting to make Jurassic Park science seem credible. The meeting decides it would be best to destroy this monster, so Steve reports on the latest news to HQ while getting a call from our final main character, Dr. Daisuke Serizawa, played by Akihiko Hirata.
Steve, you are a better newspaper man than a linguist.
It is good to hear from you.
I just got the message that you called. Did you finish with your experiments?
Yes, I finished.
Good. Let's have dinner tonight.
Steve, make it tomorrow.
Emiko is coming over this evening, and she said it was important.
All right, I'll check with you tomorrow.
That will be fine, Steve.
Sayonara.
Aw, we never see him have dinner.
That's another issue I have about this movie. While it is obvious that the American scenes were added with doubles to make Steve Martin more relevant to the story with the original characters, honestly that doesn't bother me as I've seen this done during this time of filmmaking. The problem I have with this is that surprisingly, there isn't enough. I feel like more interactions with Steve and the other main characters could have made him a more believable character instead of just being forced into the movie. And I feel like this dinner could have helped with the relationship with Steve and Dr. Serizawa, since they are supposed to be college friends in this movie. They could talk about, how's it going? How's your career? How's your evil experimenting? How do you think Godzilla will affect the economy of Japan if it ever landed on Tokyo? So Emiko stops by Dr. Serizawa's place, hoped to talk about the relationship between her and Ogata, but it turns out he has a secret experiment that he needs to show her.
Stand back.
Oh, come on, Emiko, it's not the first time I experiment on my pet fish.
Sadly, we are not able to see what horrible sight Emiko witnessed, but we are shown something equally horrible.
The world must not know of this. Promise to keep my secret.
The incompetence of the editor and the dubber are taken to a whole new level. Because I swear that's a different voice actor.
But there is something far more important which I must show you.
The world must not know of this. Promise to keep my secret.
How do you screw that up?
Well, it seems the operation is being prepared as military forces are being scrambled across the shore of Tokyo in hopes to stop Godzilla. It seems like they'll get their chance as he emerges from the ocean to land on Japan. While this is happening, Yamane and most of the characters try to head to a safe place.
I couldn't tell Dr. Serizawa about us.
I understand, Emiko.
Emiko, I really think you need to work on your timing with these things, because when it comes to your relationship issues and Godzilla attacking Tokyo, I think you know which is more urgent. Because Godzilla always wins.
Yamane and the others witness what Godzilla is capable of, and then he returns to the ocean. But even they know that this was only the beginning. So while Tokyo prepares to evacuate the citizens, they also make plans to counteract Godzilla, and Yugara tells Steve what it is.
We're making one last big effort to stop him. What's that? Come here, I'll show you. Tokyo is surrounded by high-tension electrical towers. To get to the heart of the city, Godzilla would have to break through 300,000 volts of electricity.
How did you not notice or heard the construction of those electric towers?
Hell is big and terrible. More frightening than I...
Now I must report back to my station.
All right. And thanks, Tomo.
So long, Steve.
Sayonara.
Bye, Ugar. I hope you like being in this movie. Oh, I'm not kidding. That's the last we see of him. I couldn't find him anywhere in this movie. Unless this was him under the rubble. Well, it could have provided more of a character moment with Steve. Possibly even show a little more emotion.
Night falls as most of the streets are abandoned, and Steve takes shelter in the news office as it provides a good vantage point on the city and shore, hoping to report on what will happen. And then, he appears. And with their defense broken, we begin the memorable scene of the destruction of Tokyo. And it is a spectacle with great sets, cinematography, and the design and shots of Godzilla, and even the effects with his atomic breath, showing both action and tragedy at its fullest. Man, nothing can ruin this moment!
Of course. Although it would surprise me if that scream was in the original.
It isn't long until he reaches to where Steve is and then is piled under the rubble. The military tries one final act with jets in hoping to stop Godzilla, but all it was able to do was just make him retreat. For now. After the destruction, we are brought back to where the movie started with Steve, Emiko, and Ogata. Emiko then tells them about the weapon that Dr. Serizawa created called the Oxygen Destroyer, which destroys all life in the ocean, from flesh to bones, till nothing is left.
I understand you want to tell your friends during these desperate times, but shouldn't you do it more private and not in a place filled with distraught people? And not to mention with an experiment that's just as dangerous as Godzilla?
Well, hopefully no one heard them, so Emiko and Ogata try to do their best to convince Serizawa to use the Oxygen Destroyer on Godzilla.
I broke my promise, Sarazawa. I told Steve Martin and Ogata. They both agree. You must use your oxygen destroyer against Godzilla.
Apparently, with more bad dubbing. Seriously, who thought that was a good take? It gets worse as it resorts to more physical, but even that wouldn't convince him. But luckily, the TV turns on with a national announcement which includes singing schoolgirls!
No! Not singing schoolgirls! My one weakness! Oh, they also show more people in anguish and the destruction of Tokyo, but you bastards! Not singing schoolgirls! Oh, that's too much!
So, Dr. Serizawa is convinced. However, there is a catch.
But this must be the only time the oxygen destroyer will be used.
So he burns the plans to make sure that no one will create or use the oxygen destroyer for evil purposes. By the way, he did create one for Godzilla, right?
Oh, of course he did, as they prepare for the operation, with Serizawa and Ogata diving down to find Godzilla and activate the device, while the rest wait on the ship only to watch and wait.
One diver is up. It is Ogata. Dr. Serizawa has not yet started his ascent. Ogata, it is working. Live happily with Emiko. Goodbye.
And with it activated, he then takes this opportunity to take his own life, in order to make sure that no one knows the knowledge he possesses. But then Godzilla comes to the surface, possibly as a desperate attempt to survive.
Or was to take one more look at the all-important Steve. In that case... Hey, come on, if they force Steve in the relationship with the other characters, why not Godzilla?
So Godzilla is destroyed, and that's it. I mean, they showed mourning over Sarasawa for a bit, and wished for the revival of Tokyo again for a brief moment, but that's it.
So that was Godzilla, King of Monsters, and... it felt so underwhelming.
It makes me wonder what the audience felt when they first saw this in theaters, because I'm pretty sure people's opinions would be different now. The changes that they added while making its own movie also work against it, making it more of a mixed bag or half-passable film. For technical, the editing was fine for back then, but the dubbing made it look inconsistent. As for Steve Martin being added, it's not a bad concept and he was honestly okay as a character, but he did seem shoehorned in and does take away the other important characters' development, making you wish you were better off seeing the original. In conclusion, with everything I've said, it really does feel like an average movie, but it can be entertaining if you're curious how Godzilla was introduced to America, or just find hilarity in the bizarre changes they made. I know some people probably wanted me to compare this movie to the original, but I'd rather rate this movie on its own. So, for better or worse, it brought Godzilla to the States, and I think it still portrayed him as the king of monsters.
But this isn't the only Godzilla that Hollywood tried to Americanize, so we'll see in future movies if they improved from this first attempt, or possibly made it worse. Thank you all for watching, and let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm Luke, and the Godzilla Saga will continue. And